Has someone ever challenged you to something that they didn't know who are an expert at? If so, how did it turn out for you, them? Mine's kind of dumb, but I think it still counts. At work I'm kind of the Google Sheets expert, and I make lots of tools for different departments to use. Enter, new guy, who needed to collect, aggregate and display a bunch of data. My boss was like, send Wish a calendar invite so you can tell her what you want and she'll set it up for you. New guy was having none of that and insisted he was going to do it himself. Well, a week later, he finally has this shitty sheet that doesn't have half the information we need, and we have to have the numbers for the state by tomorrow. So my boss asks me to fix it and new guy is like, yeah, okay, that's not really possible. This is as good as it's going to get. 2 hours later, I send them both a fully functional and automated sheet that does everything we need, and we'll be able to use it indefinitely, which means next time, and every time, the stupid state report is due, it will already be done. New guy was like, I would have added that in if I'd had more time. New guy sucks. I don't understand these people that cannot admit that someone did something much better than they did, and compliment them. Plus, his excuse is basically admitting that his time management is shit. Thanks for figuring out Google Sheets, and helping everyone in your work. I was out skating in my driveway one day practicing a difficult trick for me, over a 6-inch tall board. I had it on its side trying to land the trick from only 6 inches in height and I kept screwing it up for a good hour. IIRC, I was trying to land a 360 heel flip and I always had trouble with that trick cause I skate goofy to begin with. My neighbor must have been watching because he comes out, grabs the board I'm jumping over and turns it on its side so now it's 2 feet tall. He pulls $100 bill out of his wallet and says, if you can jump over the board and land it, then I'll give this to you. What he didn't know, is that I was shitty at the trick I was practicing, but among my skater friends, I was known for my ridiculous ollie height. I'm not very tall, but I could put my knees to my chest in a jump and clear 30 inches regularly. So I took the bet, backed way off, took a running start, cleared the board, stuck the landing and came to a screeching sideways stop about 6 inches from him. He knew he got played and just laughed while he gave me the money. Good thing too, cause I needed a new deck right then pretty badly. A buddy mine was at a concert in bad seats and started complaining about it via Twitter. All of a sudden the band starts reading some tweets and calls my friend up to sit on stage for a couple songs. They sit him at the piano and during the next song, they jokingly go, okay piano solo. The crowd laughs for a second but then my buddy just starts jamming out, as he plays piano in his band. Talk about dream moment getting to play with your favorite band. Reminds me of an awesome YouTube video from a couple years back. In a Keith Urban concert, this young dude gets called up on stage since his GF was holding up a sign saying it's his birthday wish to play guitar with Keith. For those that don't know, Koo is an amazing guitar player. Anyway, the dude gets up there and Keith hands him his guitar. Pretty much everyone expecting either a choke job or a mediocre attempt. But the dude proceeds to freaking shred. Keith was like, WTF. And he immediately calls back the band, who had just gone on break, and they play the full song with the dude owning the all parts including the solo. Just an amazing gotcha moment. In front of provably 15k people. My uncle challenged Jack Nicklaus to a golf game in college, without a clue. The humiliation burns him to this day. All I'm hearing is, my uncle played around with Jack Nicklaus. I'm incredibly jealous. I once went to a museum with my sister and her friend, who I hadn't met before. We got to the Greek art bit and her friend started telling me how she was super into Greek myth, and I thought that was cool, because I was, unbeknownst to her, doing a master's in it at the time and also keeping a blog of myth retellings, which was pretty popular, and it was a relief to have something in common with this stranger. She then got weirdly haughty and told me she probably knew more myths than I did, so, being polite, I didn't challenge her on it and just asked her to tell me her favorite, so that we could have a conversation about it. She proceeded to tell me the myth of Daedalus and the Minotaur. I asked her how she'd heard of that one, because it's fairly obscure. She told me she'd read it on a viral blog post on a blog about mythology. It was my blog. While I'd never claim I was an expert, I used to be pretty damn good at pool. My aunt and uncle had a pool table downstairs and my parents for a variety of reasons would go over regularly and spend all day there. There was nothing else for us, me and my brother, to do, so we just played pool all day for years. Eventually we got bored and saw that he had a book on trick shots, so we started doing that for fun. Never really mastered them, but they made for really good practice in understanding how to get the ball to do what you want. So anyway, for my buddy's 20th birthday he wanted to go to a pool hall and invited a ton of people. Then he told it was going to be a tournament, drinks for individual games, and a 50-50 type of deal for the winner. He gets half regardless because it was his birthday, insisted I come, and I caved eventually. Get there, first game, they break, and that was the only shot they got. Rest of mine were pretty similar. At the end I just looked at him, told you not to invite me. Found out after that a bunch of them had never even played pool before, felt pretty bad, so I took the money and bought everyone drinks with it. I have similar stories. I don't consider myself a great pool player. I played league pool for about 10 years, starting all the way out by dropping down to a 2 and bouncing up and down, getting better over time. But when you know people that can actually play well, you don't ever feel like you're really that great of a player. And then every once in a while somebody wants to challenge you at the table in a bar or wherever, and you suddenly remember that the majority of the population doesn't even know it's possible to control where the cue ball stops. I once challenged a girl who was a friend to foosball, not knowing she grew up with a table in her house and older brothers. I even, jokingly, put money on the game. Well, I learned a bit about humility that night. The icing on the cake was when she drove me to an ATM to get her the money. Basketball. I'm a very unassuming looking guy. 5 feet 8 inches, 150 pounds, not a tattoo to be found. But back in the day, I was pretty athletic and could hang in games with fringe D1, semi-pro guys. But I can't emphasize how much I didn't look like it at all. Anyway, in college, hanging out in someone's room, it came up that I play a bit and some dude I didn't know started running his mouth about how he could destroy me. Just wouldn't stop talking. I gave him every out, until it basically became personally offensive. Other guys were a bit tired of this asshole hanging around, and they knew I could play, so we all trooped over to the gym, late as fuck in the dead of winter, so we could settle things. 11-0 the first game. Not sure if we played after that, but I remember it was 11-0 because I made sure to not let the guy score. And I'm a pretty mellow guy and usually would have laid off and let him score a couple when it was clear that I was better, but this guy was a real asshole, so I just clamped down on him start to finish. I blocked a ton of his shit. He stopped hanging around nearly as much after that, so I was kind of a hero to the rest of the guys. Like Street Patrick. Drove that snake out of our nation. Edit. Now that I think of it, being a short, skinny white guy who didn't try to look like I was a player, every time I stepped onto a new court, I had every other person on the floor just automatically dismiss me. You get used to it. Respect, in this case, had to be 100% earned, every time. I remember one time, after college, I moved to a new city to start a new job. New coworkers were looking for a fourth guy to fill out the 3-on-3 team. They were not shy in expressing their doubts about me and how well I'd be able to hang with them. By the end of our first practice, they were telling me I should have played at the local D1 school. Edit. I wasn't that good, but it's the thought that counts. By our first game, they were clearing out when I had the ball. Those days are long gone and I've moved on to other interests, but I'm very thankful that I had those experiences. Not me but my brother and best friend. We were in Baltimore for a baseball weekend in 2009 and hanging out at a bar across from Camden Yards. They had a Silver Strike bowling video game. At our local bar back in Boston we had one as well. I'm decent at the game but my brother and buddy were fucking amazing at this game. Bowling 300 games and whatnot. So 2 dudes are playing this game and drinking. We ask them if we can play when they're done. They ask if we want to play them. We said sure. My brother and buddy destroy these guys. Like it wasn't even close. These dudes said it was a fluke and they wanted a rematch, but this time for a round of beers. Again, Annihilation City. But they kept wanting to play, to eventually win a game. No lie, after 13 rounds of beers they finally gave up. They were great guys. We saw them the next day at the same bar and they walked up to us with beers in hand already and said, rematch. To this day we still hang out with them whenever we go to Baltimore. And to this day, they have never won. Edit for details. The guys were buying 2 beers each time they lost a game to the 2 guys they lost to, for my brother and friend. The beers were Natty Boh, which is Baltimore's cheap, gross awesome beer. I can't remember the price, but they were under $2 a piece back then. They would buy the beers and they'd just start piling up on the table next to the machine, so we were all just drinking them. I'd say around 25 to 30 beers between the 5 of us in 4 or 5 hours. Tab was probably $60-ish bucks for beers, but we were there all night getting wings and a million apps, so we all just paid the tab anyways. Sounds like they were fun people who liked having someone to bullshit with. My office announced a laser tag team building event 2 weeks after I played in the laser tag Ultrazone National Championships, which were an actual thing in 1997. Edit. Sigh. No, this is not a Himam reference, which I have to specify every fucking time I talk about it. I was never of any competitive laser tag level. However, my family used to stay at this hotel resort thing every year around Christmas, and part of the package was wristbands for unlimited laser tag. My sister and I would go down when they opened in the morning and play until they closed at night. We learned the ins and outs of that room so well and got to competing on various things like who could keep their accuracy highest. My favorite was a challenge to only knife people. You could only shoot someone if you place your gun against their vest. We weren't amazing, but it was always fun to get a big group of kids come in and talk trash, so we would offer to 2vx them and just absolutely destroy them. A neighbor on my block in Brooklyn challenged me to a pizza bake-off. I recently catered pizza for my daughter's school and word got around the neighborhood my pizza was pretty darn good. My first thought was, this guy is a Brooklyn native, my pizza will be shite compared to his. But there was something about him bragging that I couldn't resist the challenge. He talked up how pizza was in his blood, how his dad ran the pizza place around the corner years ago. I remained silent and let my skills answer for themselves. I got a buddy to let us use one of Baker's Pride ovens at his restaurant. We even had total strangers try our pizzas. Every last person chose my pizza over his. I never mentioned to him that I've worked in pizza places almost every day for the last 30 years. I never mentioned that when I'm not working at a pizza place I'm making pizzas at home at least once every 2 days. I never mentioned that at 9 years old I knew that I wanted to be a pizza man. Here I am 45 and getting ready to start my own pizza business. You go, you crazy pizza man. When working as a teacher I beat a lot of students in Pokemon battles, cause they didn't think of me being like 15 years ahead of them in fighting experience. Noobs. This is how I trounce my younger siblings at Smash Brothers, every game really. Fucking teenagers think they're hot shit, no way their old ass big bro is gonna beat them this time. I have been playing since you were a baby. Oh, you got a new game, cool, I played something a lot like it on a PlayStation with potato graphics. Get wrecked. Not a physical challenge, but I sell building materials for a living, think Home Depot but for guys that build skyscrapers and stadiums. There has been many occasions where an old man with zero construction knowledge tries to lecture me on what I do for a living. My favorite. I'm going to get my lawyer to talk to you because you clearly don't know what you're talking about. Cool, so you'll pay someone to call me, so I can read a contract provision off the screen, which I'm doing for you for free right now. Whatever, dude. For reference, this is clay pigeon shooting, kinda known as trap in the South. Well, I'm from a rural area and not exactly super southern, so when I'd go to other trap fields to practice different conditions there's always be a smartass or two try and place a bet with me. This is definitely an old money sport with some of the guns going upwards of $5,000. I had an old BT-100 that we got in a trade for lead shot and some cash on the side. While not cheap, it was still much lower than other people's guns and people would take that as me being a newbie. They'd learn pretty quick though, since the team I was on went to the nationals almost every year from 11 to 18. It was always funny because some would be good sports but others would throw an absolute fit. I saw a guy damage a 10,000 Parazzi because someone else beat him before. Even funnier part is there was a guy from the county next to us who could blow us out of the water and he always shot with an 870 pump from Walmart. Edit. Glossary. BT-100. Browning Trap Model 100, famous for its dropout trigger that can be replaced and repaired very quickly. Lead shot. The actual lead balls that are in shotgun shells, we made them from Wheel Weights Nationals. I started going when it was in Vandalia, Ohio, it changed to Sparta Eel later. Imagine about 2 miles of trap ranges in a row. Parazzi. Famous Italian shotgun, good but expensive 870 pump. Remington Model 870 pump shotgun, the stereotypical pump shotgun, it's good. My shooting instructor uses to say, no matter the gun, it's the person behind it who hits. The guns all shoot straight. Even funnier part is there was a guy from the county next to us who could blow us out of the water, and he always shot with an 870 pump from Walmart. Those are always the funniest to watch. $10 plus K shotgun, $250 vest, $1,500 ear plugs, $200 glasses, beat by a guy with a $500 shotgun and cotton balls stuffed in his ears. Edit. Okay, 870s aren't $500. I was just throwing out a number. I traded for mine. And it sits in the safe because I'd rather shoot my Benelli there. That should start even more shitposting.